Oos. What's the difference between martial art action movies, combat sports, and real life street fights? Alright, so I've been doing martial arts now for over exactly 33 years, right? Started off in Kung Fu, went off into karate, Shunryu, did some Taekwondo, trained some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, boxing, Jiu-Jitsu. So I did a variety of different styles, right, through the years. And you always learn something new through your journey because always changing, right? And it depends on who you're training with too from time to time. You will know that martial arts itself, you know, it can be a way of life to certain people. To me, it's a way of life. You know, through martial arts, you learn discipline, right? Self-confidence. And with the martial arts, you could take it into other avenues in your life. So you can take martial arts, put it into your action movies, into other sports, um, take it into just basically anything that you're pursuing in life. Any career. You can take what you learn from martial arts and incorporate it. That's where the confidence come into play, right? Meditation, very important. The traditional martial arts, you meditate before class, you meditate after class, right? That's how I was taught and trained for years, right? So that's martial arts itself, right? You don't train for, say, a sport, or you train for an event. You train because you love to do it, right? You train for health, you train for mental and physical, spiritual purposes, right? It's not something that, oh, I'm just going to do martial arts today and then tomorrow and for months I don't do it again. You consistently train martial arts, and after a while, everything that you do will be martial arts once you reach that level, right? Take years now, right? Everything that you do will become martial arts. Walking will be martial arts, talking will be martial arts, right? You find yourself just standing in a stance, out of nowhere. You find yourself just doing punches and blocks out of nowhere, you know, just being in that moment. That discipline aspect of the training that you've done for years is just with you. It just becomes part of you. That's why I say it's a way of life, right? You practice your kicks, you hold positions for hours trying to perfect that one technique, right? You work your weapons, you work your katas. Katas is very important. Through the katas is where you develop all of your technique, your movement, right? You develop the power from your katas, develop the formation for the techniques. You also work weapons too, nunchaku, bow staff, katana sword, kamas, tonfas. So these weapons are just an extension of the hand, right? And martial arts is something that there is no first attack in martial arts, only for defense only, right? Only for self-defense, right? So that's martial arts to me, right? It's a way for self-defense, help you to overcome obstacles that you thought that you was unable to do, right? You never believed that you could do something, but through martial arts, it gives you the confidence to push through it, right? Martial arts is a way to express yourself, self-expression, right? You self-express yourself through the martial arts, through the formation, through the katas, through the weapons training, through the movement, through the meditation, right? Through the years, through the journey of training martial arts. Also being open-minded to other types of martial arts, because there are different martial arts styles out there, right? There's like Kung Fu, Karate, there's Taekwondo, there's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so you take the time to branch out and learn a variety of different techniques, which is going to be helpful to you, because you have to understand that you can't just base yourself on only one thing. It's like I mentioned before, it's like you have a toolbox, and in that toolbox The only tool you have is only a screwdriver, right? I mean, you could be creative with a screwdriver, but you know, it would be good if you had a bunch of other tools along with a screwdriver to help you out through your journey, right? You have some spanner, you have some wrenches, you have different sockets, to help you along through your journey. So you keep an open mind, when you're training the martial arts. So, you might do a kick, like one way, but then there's other ways that you can execute that kick too. Same thing with the punching, same thing with the movement, same thing with the katas, the forms. There's going to be always a different way of doing things. And everybody else that's training in the martial arts, some people are going to know a little more than you. There's nothing wrong with that. You work with them, you exchange ideas, share techniques, and then you move on. That's how you learn. You never know everything. There's always something to be learned in the martial arts. You never know everything, man. There's always somebody that's going to be better than you, right? Martial art movies, right? What's the difference between martial arts and martial art movies? Martial art movies, they show martial arts in them, they show the techniques, but it's choreographed for TV, it's choreographed as a sense of when you're throwing the techniques, you're kind of faking the movements, and you set the camera in a certain position to where it looked like a hit, like the person's actually getting hit, but it's just choreographed, right, through variety of different movements, just like if you're doing a kata or a dancing routine, basically. A lot of the techniques in the movies are effective and possibly can work, in a real life situation. It all depends on who you're fighting now. Most of the time it's not just the style itself, it's a person that's doing the style, that's doing that technique, right? So when it comes to movies, and the martial arts, it's all choreographed, right? So the person know what you're gonna do before you do it. And the camera is set up in a certain position, and then there's tons of takes, and you probably do one kick maybe 100 times before you get it right, so it look a certain way on camera. Because certain angles that you stand and you deliver that kick, it might not look as good, if the camera was set maybe in a different position, right? Coming from a film student, I've shot a couple martial art scenes, so I know what it is to choreograph fighting scenes, right? So, that's just martial art movies as itself, Still martial arts in there. Martial artists are performing the techniques, but it's just on screen for entertainment purposes. So majority of the techniques might not actually work in a real life situation, and then you have some techniques that will work, right? So it all depends, as I said, when it comes to a style, kung fu, karate, taekwondo, name it, any martial arts style, it all comes down to the person that's implementing the techniques, right? If the person don't put the training into the techniques themselves daily, yearly, work at it, consistency, right? If they don't train, the style is going to be useless. You know what I'm saying? Not because you do karate or you do kung fu, that mean that you're going to be able to be a good fighter or a good martial artist. It all depends on the person that's doing that martial art style, right? It's not the style, it's the person. Always remember that. Now when it comes to MMA now, the sport, right? That's a whole different thing now. Now you're talking about rules, regulations, and there are time limits, referee, rounds, right? The organizations create rules and regulations for you to play by, to go by. So the only weapons that you have in there is maybe you can throw knees, you can throw elbows, you can take down, ground and pound, you can't bite, you can't kick to the groin, you have a cup on, you have mouthpiece, right? But in MMA you have 4-ounce gloves on, right? So in my opinion, I think that MMA itself, the sport, it comes close to showing what will happen in a street fight, right? As I said, there's nothing like a street fight, because in street fight they're actually extension of your hand weapons like knives and guns. So it's not fully showing what a real street fight can be like. But there are things in MMA that can simulate, what will happen in a street fight, as far as the ground and pounding, the takedowns, the knees, the elbows, and so forth, right? But they're still missing like headbutts, and certain things that you can do in the street that you can't do in the game, in the sport, obviously. Now, keep this in mind now, right? When it comes to MMA, the sport, or any kickboxing tournament, so forth, you have to make weight, right? Making weight by itself, if you haven't made weight before, you drop into 155, drop into 145, it's tough to cut weight. Just cutting weight can take a toll on you. That could make you break. That could make you don't want to compete anymore, because just making weight is crazy, right? Then you have to train, right? You have to train for the sport, for the game. This training can be rough too. That will break you. That will make you don't want to even be a fighter, right? So you have to keep that in mind, that what these fighters go through. I mean, it's a lot, man, to prepare for these fights, right? And as I said, you have to train. You have to train, and what I mean by training, you train with different people, different body types. You're not just having your martial arts school and you're sparring with like your students or people that you're sparring with don't know nothing, and then you're kicking them around. That is not going to help you. You have to spar people, fight people that are better than you, that are going to push you to the point where you break, till you have nothing left in you, right? Till you're basically on the ground on your belly, like just exhausted. If you're not getting that kind of training, then you're not training. That's a difference, when it comes to combat sports or full contact fighting. You need to get pushed to the limits of exhaustion, till you break down. You probably might even want to quit, but if you have a heart, you hang in there, right? And that's just training itself. That's not even the fight yet. They say the training is worse than the fight, which it is, right? So, as I said, if you haven't been in a situation like this, just preparing for a fight, even if it's a sport, right? You will not know what a real fight feels like. If you don't train to where you're pushing yourself on a daily basis, and that means sparring. Yes, there is touch and go sparring, where you train like 40%, where you sometimes don't wear any gloves, you just work techniques, like you work on executing a technique at your opponent in precision, to where you're setting up the kicks with the punches with the kicks, and you're moving around using footwork. You're working your distancing, you're working setting your range, right? You're working doing lateral movements. It's kind of like you're working like a kata in a sense, but with your opponent, bouncing in and out, but you're not hitting your opponent hard. You're just drilling the techniques, getting your timing right. Then you have the other side of it, where you need to put on the headpiece, you need to put on the mouthpiece and the gloves, and go at least 70 to 80%. You never go 100% in training, but you need to push it up a notch, where you go rounds, right? You go in there and you spar, and you actually hit each other, and you see what it feels like to get hit. No, your head is not meant to get hit, so you use the technique, you use the footwork from when you learn, from the touch and go, from the simulation, from in and out movement. You use that, but you just don't go in there and brawl. But you move around and see what it feels like to, when somebody hits you in the body, you get hit to the head, you move around, you make the slippy punches. You go through the simulation of the training, right? To where, you're kind of doing like hard sparring, but you use the gloves and the headpiece to protect yourself so you won't get injured. Like Bruce Lee here, he trained with gloves and a headpiece because he was more realistic in his training, right? Bruce Lee was never a fighter, I should say. He's a martial artist, but he trained as a fighter, right? He was never a competitive fighter. Like, never did like any, kickboxing or any sports. right? But he trained like a fighter. He would, watch Muhammad Ali, it's from his footwork. He learned some judo from Jean LaBelle. He was always mixing up his techniques, but he would always try to use realistic techniques, right? That will work in real life situation. And the only way you're gonna know that if you train it realistically, and you have to go through the toughness of it, where you need to put on the gloves and the headpiece and you need to go. You need to go in there and box it out and see what it feels like. Because if you don't go through that simulation of it, you will never know what a real street fight, if you do get into a street fight, is gonna feel like. And once you get that first hit, you're gonna be surprised because you never get hit before. As I said, you try to avoid hits. You don't want to get hit, but you can't avoid not getting hit all the time. Sometimes you're gonna get hit if you're in a fight. You're gonna get hit, right? If Bruce Lee was in MMA, if he was alive now and he was like, competing in MMA, he would lose some fights. Everybody's gonna lose a fight, or unless you're Floyd Mayweather. But as I said, that a lot of people are gonna lose some fights and you're gonna win some fights. And in MMA, it's hard to keep that record of not losing because there's so much going on, from getting taken down, elbows, knees. There's so much going on in that sport, man. That is kind of hard, to have that 20-0 record, And then you have to deal with a judging system, which sometimes the judges could just be favoring one guy more than the other guy, and then you lose a fight because of the judges. So there's a lot to deal with that sport, as I said. But when it comes to a street fight, that's life and death. As you see here, this guy's on his belly, just getting punched in the back of the head. Kind of similar to MMA, right? As you can see here, it's just, the guy's mounting him, but his belly's on the ground. If the guy on the ground knew some jiu-jitsu, he could have helped him. That's what I said. If you're trying to train in your school and you're training with people that don't know anything, and the kind of training that you're doing is just some slapping and some kicking to the ankle, and you're not really pushing yourself to where you get exhausted, or the person that you're training with is not pushing you in any way, then you're wasting your time. Because once you get into a situation where you have to use whatever you have to use, and say it's a street fight, and you don't know who you're fighting, it can be rough on you. In your mind, you probably believe that what you're doing is like, oh man, it's the greatest thing because you're in your school doing it and you feel, like you're high, like you're on your high horse, because you're training with people that are below you and they don't know anything, right? So, you're going to feel good until, you get to somebody that's going to humble you. And that humbling experience, man, it would change your life. I mean, I've been through it. I've been through 33 years of training, and I'm still on my journey. And right now, I'm so humble. I know that there are people out there that are better than me, that know more than me, that are more conditioned than me at this moment, right? I mean, I'm good at what I do, but I know that, to compete at a certain level, you need to be pushed on a daily basis. You have to be realistic, right? You need to do some hard sparring as well as working the techniques. It goes hand in hand. You can't just be slapping each other with slap boxing and moving around and then you're sparring people that don't know nothing. And then you think you're going to get into a street fight with somebody. It doesn't work that way, man. There's people out there who, train consistently and are natural killers, like will throw down like naturally, who are naturally just fighters. As I say, there's a martial artist and there's a fighter. A martial artist can be a fighter, but then you have people who just fight, that don't back down, like just throw those hands, and you could just be there like, you're trying to do whatever you learn for your martial arts, but it just doesn't work, right? And that's why when I'm training, I don't really try to train too many like self-defense technique, like you grab my wrist, I bend your hand back, I do this and this and this, like, a bunch of different techniques before you get to where you want to get to. I'm usually drill more of touch and go, footwork, more boxing, more implementing combination with the punches and the kicks. I more drill those kind of techniques because it's more realistic. in a real life situation. It's just the consistency of it and the drilling it repetitively to where it comes natural to you. So if somebody steps, you maybe slip and bam, bam, bam. It's a combination that's fire. Or if you're moving backwards, you counter bam, bam, bam. So it's just training the techniques, repetition, you know, and also training realistically also. And that's gonna be with hard sparring. Because that's the only way you're gonna know or you're gonna feel or understand through the simulation of it, or putting on the gloves and sparring, you know. It's protection with the gloves and the headpiece. As I said, the head is not meant to get hit, but it's the only way you're gonna understand what it feels like. Because if you don't go through that and you get into a fight, you're not gonna know what to do. You're not gonna know what it feels like, because you never go through the drilling aspect of it. Just like the ground game, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you never did any Jiu-Jitsu, you don't know what it feels like to get slammed on the ground, put in an arm bar, you know, triangle choke, omoplata, guillotine. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna know how to roll out of it. You're not gonna know how to defend against it. If you don't know those basic things, what are you training? You know, you're not training for realistic situations. And if you feel like in your mind that you can never get taken down in a fight, street fight, that you know you're gonna always be standing up on your foot, you're in for a rude awakening. Majority of fighting end up on the ground. You don't want to be on the ground, but sometimes that's where you end up. And if you don't have any ground technique, you don't know what it feels like to have somebody in your guard, you're gonna panic. You're not gonna know what to do. I'm telling you, these are things you need to learn, you need to train. And the only way you're gonna understand this is to train with other people, train with different body types, right? I learned this, right? I've been through the journey of it, right? If you think that you're gonna bite somebody when somebody have you in a guillotine choke or a rear naked choke, you think you're gonna grab the balls and bite them. That's not gonna happen. Once the person initiate the technique on you and lock it in, and they know what they're doing, if you try to bite them, they're gonna choke you out or break your neck. If you think you're gonna bite them once they have you in an arm bar, they're gonna snap your arm first. If you think you're gonna poke their eye out, they're gonna snap your arm if they know what they're doing. Now, if you initiate the bite first, before the person locks up on you, get you in a rear naked choke, guillotine choke, or armbar, then that's different, because you initiate the bite first. That's different. But once a person locks in on you, biting and groin pulling and eye poking is not going to work. I'm telling you this through experience. I've been to the journey and still traveling the journey where you train with other people, you know, you get choked out, you know, you feel your jaw is gonna snap, you know, you get kicked in the head, you get knocked down, you know, you get rib broken, sprain your knee, sprain your ankle. You know, when you train with different body type, different people, it gives you more understanding, you know, of the training, and you know what you're dealing with, you know, and you give you more confidence in your martial arts, you know what I'm saying? Because you're training with guys that are bigger than you, guys that are smaller than you, and guys that are the same weight as you. And you're training techniques that are realistic, right? So that's just what it is, man. You know, the difference between the martial arts, martial art movies, combat sports, and real life fighting, right? At the end of the day, you have to do simulation of an actual real fight, but in a safe way, where you wear headgear and gloves and mouthpiece. That's the only way you're going to really understand what a real life fight is going to feel like. Because if you don't do that, then how are you going to know what it what it's going to feel like, right? And the best way to train like this is to train with different people, different styles, different body type. That's the only way you're going to progress, right? If you keep training with the same people from your school that you're teaching and they don't know nothing, you know, and you're kicking them around, you're not learning nothing. You're not being challenged, you're not being pushed. You know what I'm saying? You have to train with people that are going to push you and that are going to throw some hits on you, literally throw some blows on you that will probably make you want to quit. That's when you start to learn. But if you're just training with people from your school that don't know nothing, and You know what I'm saying? You're just creating your own rules in your own little environment. You live in a fairy tale. It's not realistic. Because on real life situation in the street, it's not going to be like that. You know, you're fighting a random person. Sometimes the person might not know as much, and sometimes the person might know a lot.